Nerds Not Nerds, the podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I am Vince.
It's time for another commentary podcast, Vince.
Indeed, a commentary podcast, Vince.
And today's commentary podcast, Vince, is on Daredevil. Today, we're going to be talking about Daredevil while we're watching Daredevil. So once again, let me explain how this works in case you've never watched one of our commentary podcasts. We've done a few of these now. We're going to be watching Daredevil, and I'm going to tell you exactly when to start your DVD from your menu. The play button from your menu if you're watching it on DVD. But you can also, if you'd prefer, just listen to us talk without watching the DVD, and we'll be sure to provide plenty of context so that you can listen to the podcast wherever you happen to be without having to also watch the thing. You probably should, of course, have seen the film and know something about it.
And for those of you who are watching the film, hopefully it doesn't feel like a double beat. That would be fun.
A double beat?
Oh, a double beat, meaning when a character repeats himself later in the movie.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Well, that can happen. One thing we're going to do with this one too is we're going to read a couple credits so that it helps people line up their tracks. Someone suggested Sid Part 2 suggested we do that, and that would help
Sid
people.
Part 2.
Yeah, because he watched one and he was like, I was 10 seconds behind the entire time, and if you'd given me some kind of context somewhere, that would have helped. So that's what we're going to do. But anyway, we're going to do the theatrical cut for Daredevil today, and then later on we're going to even do the director's cut, because Vince and I love the director's cut, but I think that it's worth doing both.
Yeah.
They're very different movies, and I think it's totally worth doing both.
Yeah. Incidentally, they both star Ben Affleck.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not very different movies, but the director's cut, it's not like one's a remake of the other one, but the director's cut where they just recast everyone. Anyway, so without further ado, we're going to start watching and talking about Daredevil. And if you are watching it along with us from your menu, hit the play button right now.
20th Century Fox Home Entertainment. That's not a credit. That's just telling you the beginning anyway.
That's going to help everyone line up their audio.
Yeah. As it turns out, I have the crappy version of the film. I have the the full screen version.
Oh,
so.
which means that this is going to be different from a lot of people's versions because they probably won't have that. So that's okay. But anyway, whatever. So here's the 20th Century Fox logo. We're about to get into it. One of the things that struck me when I saw this in the theater, and by the way, I gotta admit this, I probably saw this 4 times in the theater.
Oh yeah.
I just loved this movie, and I don't care what anybody says. When I first saw it, I didn't even care how messed up the story was. I know more things now than I did back then.
It's funny how life does that to you.
Yeah.
You just manage to pick things up as time goes by.
But I did just really, really enjoy it. And also, I want to put this into perspective a little bit. This was before the big onslaught of superhero films. I mean, this was kind of the beginning of that onslaught, right? We had Blade, we had X-Men, and then we had Spider-Man, and now finally we're starting to get all the second stringers and stuff. And this was kind of the beginning of that. This was 03.
Yeah.
I was actually working in a movie theater when this came out, which is why I saw it that many times, because I got to go for free.
In association with Marvel Enterprises, Inc. There you go. We've had a couple of them now. You guys can't complain.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So now you should know where we are. But anyway, so what was your reaction when you first saw this? I mean, did you have any of the problems that a lot of people complain about?
When I first saw this, it wasn't a big deal for me. I still. There are some movies I just don't have a lot of perspective on, or at least not perspective, but I can't bring myself to be exactly objective about some things. And stylistically, this movie was so neat to me that I couldn't care.
Yeah, me too. It put me in a mood, and I think there are some movies that do that to me where I enjoy them so much because of how it makes me feel. And I don't talk about that kind of thing a lot because when I'm reviewing things, I try to be objective and I make it a lot about story and about how things should be structurally and about what it's actually intending on doing and that sort of thing. But just as a viewer, just as someone consuming entertainment, some movies put me in a particular kind of mood. This was one of those. I will still put this in sometimes just because I want to feel that again.
I really, really enjoyed the Kevin Smith Daredevil, and so I was stoked. I was ready for a Daredevil movie. And when this thing came out, and as a matter of fact, later when he makes his appearance, I was freaked out by that too.
Because you didn't know that was going to happen.
I had no idea.
Cool.
Yeah, I wasn't really versed in the ways of the internet at the time, so I didn't know what to expect about everything. But this is weird to me, this little CGI rat. And
it looks better than the CG gophers in that fourth Indiana Jones movie.
Well, that's fair, but the fourth Indiana Jones movie sucked. I got 20 minutes in and said, you know what? I don't even care about the plot point. I'm not going to watch. I'm like, there's nothing they could do to make me enjoy this guy.
I think the credits in the Braille was kind of a neat idea.
Yeah. You know, that's the thing, is this movie is visually really interesting. Especially with the those opening, and it's also, you know, that's also a computer-generated image, the opening city that they had.
Yeah.
And of course now we're into actual live action. But
are we? Are you sure?
I think so. Well, we're into something that's supposed to be live action.
I was going to say I'm not sure this isn't all CG too. That blood sure is. But I'm just saying I'm not sure that this going up this building isn't CG.
No, I suppose it's a possibility.
But anyway, I'm sorry.
But it's much better looking than the rat. But,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly when we get to the top of this cathedral, that's there's going to be some CG. I think. I don't remember. Whatever. Anyway, it's not important.
You know, what an iconic image! The Daredevil hanging on the cross. I always thought that was neat. I always thought this was a little King Kong reminiscent, with all these helicopters and things flying around him at the top of this building.
Yeah, I you know, like you keep saying, visually, I think all of this at the beginning does a really good job of getting us you know, interested in this and getting the mood of the film. Mm-hmm. I don't love it structurally. Yeah. Just because, and I think maybe this is in hindsight, maybe this is looking back, but I have gotten to the point where I am very tired of the structure of kind of pseudo nonlinear storytelling, where you have to open with the end of the film for really no good reason,
yeah,
and then jump into the like we start with the very end of the movie here, basically not the very end, but real close to the end, right? This is after most of the events of the film have happened. This is the middle of the third act, and then we jump all the way back to him as a child with this kind of conceit of my life is flashing before my eyes. But then it's kind of pointless after that. I think it's a little too gimmicky. It's almost like, because it's a superhero movie, we have to open with him in the costume if we're going to go back and give his whole background. And I don't think that was necessary.
You know, that's the thing, is that ordinarily people's backgrounds have something to do with their present time. Like it's really closely related. But I think it's a good move to start here. I'm not saying that they necessarily needed to start here at the very end of the movie, but I think it's good to start with him in a costume here, because at some point, I mean, when you jump all, you know, the whole life flashes before your eyes. Hey, what do you know? You're right.
I know this movie, all right?
Oh, I was just being smart. But that's the thing, is that if they're going to go this far back, it's so far removed from him crime fighting. It's just, and now we're going to tell you how he got his superpowers. And in my mind, if you start there, if you're just going to give a background for it and then jump way into the future, mm-hmm. it feels really disjointed to me. It's like, let's give you a reason to believe, and then let's get to the story. It's like, but then again, I do understand, because they do tie it in with the whole his father's relation to the mob. So there is a reason to start there.
Yeah,
but
you've got a really good point. I just think that it could have been cleverer as far as you know how the structure goes. Again, that's after. I'm mostly comparing that to things that happen after this, and that's not fair either. But I'm just like what I'm thinking is, wouldn't it have been kind of more interesting if we had gotten some of this kind of more through the main narrative of the film as it went along? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we get, instead of just starting at the end and giving us a little bit of that where we don't even know. Here's the thing: we don't even know the context of all of that. We have no idea what he's doing hanging there. We have no idea what happened to him. Halfway through the film, you totally forget all that, and then you don't even remember it till the end. You're like, oh yeah, we started there, and then it feels like a gimmick. What I'm saying is, why don't you open with some story, with some actual plot from you know, current Daredevil, and we just establish, okay, he's a superhero, he has these powers, and then we go back in time and tell you how we got them, and do it a little bit more like the structure of Batman Begins, where it's nonlinear storytelling, where we're giving you these scenes at the points where we want the audience to know things, as opposed to exactly when they happen. I really like I really like that for nonlinear, as opposed. I just think this is a little too gimmicky.
No, that's fair. I mean, you know, I even had a film instructor once say that the past in a movie should be gradually given to you, and it shouldn't be. And he went so far to say that it should not be done in flashbacks. So I think that's interesting. I think it's almost an interesting exercise to make yourself not use flashbacks.
Oh, absolutely.
Because then you have to find clever ways for characters to address these issues.
I don't know if you did, but I had assignments back in college in my writing courses where we were forced to not use flashbacks and find other ways to get background. I think it's a very good exercise.
And that's the thing is that flashbacks are a useful tool, but it's a crutch. And also, starting this early is a crutch, in my opinion. When you we're going to tell this in chronological order because people are not going to get it if we don't start with him as a kid. Imagine The Godfather if they started in Sicily.
That's a great point. On the other hand, I think that this is a step in the right direction. And remember how early this is. I mean, this is 03. Right. This is as far as the grand... I don't mean it's a really old movie. I just mean in the scale of superhero films, as long as they've been. I think that where this is going in the right direction is that at least the entire movie is not origin. Mm-hmm. We open with it, and then when we go ahead, we get a plot about a Daredevil that's been around for a while. Yeah. And I do really appreciate that.
That's the thing is that you're absolutely right about that. There's so many times that they're like, well, 2/3 of this movie are going to be how Spider-Man gets his powers and gets used to his powers, and then he beats a guy up with those powers.
That's it.
And
or in the case of Fantastic Four, 100% of the film.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is that even with, I suppose we can address this if and when we do Fantastic Four.
Oh, I think we have to. We have to do that movie.
With the Thing, he's so obsessed with his condition throughout most of the comics that it's a big major thing in the movie, and nobody thinks to wholly separate that so they can tell a story.
This affected me in the theater.
I thought this was beautiful.
We're talking about the scene in the hospital where Matt Murdock realizes he's blind, but he's figuring out also his how his powers are working. And I think that the visual effects on this were a really clever way to go to show us how his radar sense works. And I think that all of these sound effects worked really well in the theater in a way, in just surround sound, in a way they don't work as well just watching it or wearing a pair of headphones. I don't know if you remember that, but I mean, in the theater, all of these sounds that he's getting are coming from all over the place, and I think that was really cool how it was edited.
Mm-hmm. I almost wish there'd been like an aerial view of this kid standing in this room, hearing all these things. I'm not saying it's necessary, and of course, he refines his powers later, or at least he gets used to them and he understands how they work. But, because here he's really confused by it. Everything's happening in the same room. So he sees cars in his room. He sees a jackhammer in his room. He sees all these things in a room. And one of the things about Daredevil from the comics is that it's he could see all around him because of his power. So he doesn't have to look behind him to see it, but the camera moves around like he's looking.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Now,
although he is, because he hasn't figured it all out yet.
Yeah. To his credit. I suppose psychologically he would be focusing straight forward wherever his face is. Well, basically.
Sure, because that's what you would do. That's what you or I would do. We're too used to seeing. We should obviously talk about Jack Murdock here. Jack the Devil Murdock in this film.
Yeah.
Battling Jack Murdock in the comics. I like the change.
Yeah, me too.
I do. And I'm not saying that it's... Oh, I like him too. I think they have great chemistry together. This is one of the better father-son dynamics I've seen in a superhero film. I think it's quite good. And I find it pretty heart-wrenching when he dies. And even in the theatrical cut, I think it's pretty heart-wrenching even without some of the scenes that they cut out. And we should mention that, like, they're already at this point. There's a lot cut out from the director's cut, even already. Mm-hmm. There are several moments with these two together that they've already dropped. But anyway, I think Jack the Devil Murdock is a really cool way to give him his name, and I don't think that it's too gimmicky. I think it works.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with it. I mean, there have been things where it's just too easy. Like, that would be an abomination.
I hate that. I'm with you.
Well, he's called the Abomination now, I guess, because this guy in a coat thinks he's an abomination. So,
plus, the Guardian Devil idea came from Kevin Smith, and unless it existed before that, but I don't remember it anywhere before that.
I mean, I know it was a big deal in Kevin Smith.
It was a big deal in Kevin Smith's run, yeah. And I like that this runs with that and then gives us a place where it came from. And it also makes sense for a boxer. Like, I kind of buy that.
And I like how casually he punches the bag. So, I don't... There's a lot that the father and son have in relation to each other. And I mean, that's one of the things that they're doing here is that this kid is. He even says that both the father and the son are two fighters on the comeback trail. And I like how he's saying that a fight can just be life. It doesn't have to be in a ring, even though one of these is literally in a ring.
Mm-hmm.
And
I like how he uses, the city as a playground. He even says that.
Stanley.
And again in the theater, I was a senior in high school, and this really affected me. I thought that it was at the time kind of the best depiction of kind of the fun of superhero roof jumping and all that kind of thing. It made me want to go visit New York City. I mean, I really.
It made me want to go jump off a roof in New York City.
Yeah, it was kind of a big deal to me.
This has always been kind of a big note with me in movies is kids who get picked on who manage to stand up for themselves.
Right.
I mean, well, let me rephrase that. Just an underdog who manages to find a way. Like he finds strength. Granted, that kick's kind of a little extravagant.
Yeah. Plus, it's kind of easy. It's a little bit easy when you actually have superpowers. You know what I mean? Like okay, so he has. That's the thing with Daredevil. Sometimes that I think is difficult to reconcile occasionally. I don't know if you agree with that, but where it's like he's a kid that can be looked up to, and I mean Daredevil's a man to be looked up to because he's somebody who was blinded and he has a handicap, but he manages to kind of strive anyway. But, he's got help, he's got a crutch, he's not just a regular blind guy. He still has some extraordinary powers.
That's one of the things is that his extraordinary powers don't even account for his agility. I mean, he's a kid he's a kid, but he's a person who's gotten good at these things. And at this stage in his life, I would almost question his ability to do acrobatics as well as he does, since he's pretty recently blinded.
Well, that's a good point.
I mean, They
try to play it like he's just working out all the time, and he's working on this all the time, but I mean, the thing is, he doesn't have any training beyond his dad, and he's just a boxer. He wouldn't have that kind of agility. How does he learn that stuff?
Yeah, I think that maybe the idea is that he can see the world a little bit more. We're so fixated by what we can see that him, by knowing where the general location of everything is, he can gauge how he needs to land.
Do you think a lot of it is also lack of distraction?
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, that's the thing is that even with this guy's power, you would think lack of distraction would be a huge thing. That concentration would be something he'd really have to work on. It would be almost a problem more than it would be a superpower. I mean, he needs to learn to focus his ability, and that's what he's been working on.
Yeah, and I always thought that part of the reason that Daredevil was the man without fear was because he can't see anything that would scare him, so he manages to psych himself out to the point where he's not afraid because he can focus, because there's nothing to distract him, visually. I always thought that was part of why, even all the way back to the Stan Lee days, that the man without fear was a big deal.
That's a good point. I mean, because ultimate clarity is what this kid has now.
We're not talking about 616 clarity. We're talking about ultimate clarity.
I mean,
but
oh, two drums and a cymbal fall off a cliff. But
sorry, that joke wasn't funny at all.
But this is heart-wrenching for me.
It is. Yeah,
I'll admit
we're at the scene where he gets killed by Wilson Fisk.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I mean, when Spider-Man came out, I don't know why I said when I was a kid, because this guy's a kid in the movie, so that's why I said. Anyway, when Spider-Man came out, I did cry when Uncle Ben died. When Batlin Jack Murdoch gets killed, or the Devil Murdoch gets killed. You
really cried.
It's really something. Father-son relationships in movies are just heart-wrenching to me.
No, me too. Yeah. And, when are we going to do our commentary on Field of Dreams?
Even here, he has to touch him to know. I mean, granted he doesn't, but because he knows where the guy is, so having to touch him is unnecessary.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason that I care so much about him is because even with what they cut out and with the very short amount of time we spend with them, they do a very good job of making these both characters I care about. You've got a kid that a terrible thing happened to that he doesn't complain about. He just finds a way to live with it and cope with it. And yes, he gets superpowers, but that could have been even a problem where it's like, not only am I blind, but I've got all these new things I don't know what to do with. Like and so you got a character that a terrible thing happens to and he doesn't complain. You got another character who did bad things and atones for them.
Yeah.
Because we talked all over that and we didn't talk about it, but the whole thing about how Jack Murdock was working for gangs and doing bad things, and then when something bad happens to his kid, he doesn't just sulk, he does something about it.
Yeah, that's a big theme here. I mean, it's about
it's a thug made into a real character. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, I love this cage thing. I don't know if that's in the comics anywhere, but I
don't
love
think it is either, but I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
The idea that, how is he going to sleep? Well, he has to block out all noise he possibly can.
And he does it with water. You were going to go someplace with...
Yeah, I know, but just the idea that he's in this cage kind of made me forget where
it's not really a cage,
it's
more like a coffin.
Yeah, this big metal casket.
Yeah, but anyway.
But the thing that I was trying to get at was that this kid really gets his morality from his dad. It's not just a single line like, "Oh, you should work hard," and the kid's not trying to atone for anything. The father taught the son something, and that thing that he taught him was, you have to be able to take care of yourself. Because you don't want to become a guy working for the mob. You don't want to become somebody that's dependent on crime to survive.
Well, I didn't say that he was... I didn't say that Matt Murdock was trying to atone for it. I was saying that
no.
that was how Jack Murdock atones for it.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Jack Murdock looks at his kid and says, you need to make good grades. Don't just go get in fights all the time. Don't do what I did. Become somebody.
This is probably the point where I should mention that this was the movie soundtrack I listened to more than anything else throughout the 2000s.
This is the movie soundtrack that I've listened to more than any other movie soundtrack.
Yeah, I love it. But I mean, like, more than any other album. I mean, I have played the crap out of that album. Yeah. I really, really like it.
There was one song I really wanted to be on the album that was not, and that was the song they used to introduce Wilson Fisk.
It doesn't go with anything else on that disc, though, is the problem with it.
Yeah.
It's that disc is mostly metal and hard rock, and that just wouldn't have fit on it. Like, there's a kind of pseudo rap song in that, but it still fits better than that thing would have. Like, that's too R&B for this.
Yeah, Top of the Morning to You by House of Pain. I was like, that's so cool.
Yeah, it wouldn't have fit on that album either, though. I understand why they didn't put it on there. I'm just saying. No, I'm with you. I like those songs too, but I mean, I got them later. I like them too, but. Well, a lot of people think that Ben Affleck was wrongly cast. What do you say to that?
I think he's okay. I don't think he's the natural choice. I mean, that's one of the things that Kevin Smith said was that, who do you think should play Daredevil? Oh, Ben Affleck. Really? Like, I think he did a serviceable job.
Yeah, but you got to remember, too, that Kevin Smith and Ben Affleck are best friends.
Yeah.
And that Ben Affleck is one of the biggest Daredevil fans on the planet. And Kevin Smith knows that. Yeah. And so Kevin Smith immediately would say that because they've had conversations about it, That wasn't an objective thing that he said.
Yeah, and, I suppose fair enough. If you're going to, if one of your buddies had enough clout to potentially become a superhero or, play a superhero in a movie, wouldn't you give him the vote of confidence? I suppose that's fair. But I just don't... It's not that I don't buy him as Daredevil. I think he does fine as Daredevil. I just think that there's a potentially better choice out there.
I agree with you. I do think that I was...
This is cool.
I do think that I was a lot... I understood the choice a lot more when I saw the director's cut, when he got to play Matt Murdock a lot more. When you get some of those other courtroom scenes that are not in the theatrical cut, he really channels Matt Murdock quite well.
Yeah.
And we just don't see those here. So I think that a lot of people's complaints made sense with this, watered down and dumbed down version of this movie that we got, which is very much what this is. We're 20 minutes in, and they've already cut some of the really great scenes in this movie. Now they haven't cut they haven't cut so much at this point that the narrative doesn't make sense yet. We'll get there. we will get to a point where they cut major plot points where just now the movie doesn't even cut together right. But like that last scene, there's a bit. There's a really great bit between Foggy and Matt Murdock that's a much better introduction to Foggy Nelson. And what we get there, we don't even know who the guy is here. It's just like, he's talking to his partner. Okay, like he actually gets a real introduction in the director's cut.
Sometimes I think that people get a little edit crazy and they forget that the viewer hasn't actually seen the movie or isn't really familiar.
Absolutely,
with
they're
the
too
material.
close to it.
So they're like, well, everybody knows who Foggy Nelson is. No, they don't.
Yeah.
Like, Daredevil fans know who he is. You guys know who he is because you did research.
With this movie, they sacrifice plot for pacing.
Yeah.
You can't do that. I would rather pacing suffer before not understanding what's happening in the film.
I think this is neat that they see him in the darkness. I'm like, here's a guy who's wearing a really dark costume, and people still notice him. I don't know. I just think it's cool. A guy that can address an entire room.
What I dug about that was when the guy looks up and says, "Hey, is he for real? Like, is that like part of the scenery? Is that like did Jodie put up like a gargoyle in her bar for some reason? Like,
yeah,
that's kind of cool.
And I like that he's vulnerable as well. I mean, he just got hit a few times and knocked down, but he's competent enough in a fight that he can take a punch.
Would you agree with me if I were to say that part of the problem with this movie is that it's almost too much for Daredevil fans?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, I'll explain it this way. There are a whole lot of characters in this movie that would feel like made-up throwaway characters to somebody who had never read Daredevil comics. Like, Jodie in her bar, that's comic book. There's a lot of things like that where a big Daredevil fan might watch this and appreciate it a whole lot more than other people, even the bits that don't make a lot of sense, just because they clearly are mining the comics and actually are fans of the material, which is a problem that we've had with a lot of comic book films, where they're made by people who don't really even know very much about the source material, and so they give us something that has the character and has the costume, but they just didn't look into the source material enough and pull some cool stuff. This movie at least does that. It mines for characters. It mines a lot for ideas. There's of course a lot of Miller in this, but there's a lot of other people as well in this.
Now, are you suggesting that they're focused too much on the source material?
Yes,
and
that's exactly what I'm suggesting.
I
think it works fine for the director's cut, but I think that for this, again, more kind of watered down cut, it's not working very well because it almost feels too fan filmish.
I think
it's like we're trying to pull all these things together, but there's no actual story.
I think Foggy Nelson's introduction really supports what you're saying. I mean, who is this guy and why should we care? Well, you should care because he's a main character.
How about also the fact that like half the made up characters in this are named after writers and artists?
Yeah,
they're clearly pandering to the fans when they do stuff like that. And the first time I saw it, I thought it was really clever, but only after the first couple. By 5, 6, 7, I got a little tired of it. I mean, like all the fighters that are all the throwaway names for fighters that threw matches toward the beginning. Miller, Mac, Bendis. You're like, really? All right. you know.
Actually, I want to say this. I think it's interesting that they have so many just thuggish accents in this movie. They have so many people like, hey, this is the way I'm talking. I'm a Joe Pesci clone here. Hey. And it doesn't stand out the way that it does in other movies.
I was going to say, I never would have even noticed that. And I don't think that there's that much of that. I think there's like 1 or 2 characters. This guy's not doing that at all. He's got much more of a... This guy, of course, has much more of a what am I trying to say? Of a kind of a Mexican background, I think.
Jose Quesada.
Yeah. And once again, Quesada. Yeah, I mean they've all got to have names of writers and artists.
Joe Quesada, Jose Quesada. I think
in the director's cut, he calls him Diablo.
Yeah.
Yeah. This Quesada guy calls Daredevil Diablo before he tries to pull the trigger.
If you're from Brooklyn, you can have a Brooklyn accent and have a different ethnic background.
Well, I'm not saying it's a problem. I'm just saying that I think that they're not just trying to all be stereotypically New Yorkers.
I'm not saying, or that's what I'm getting at here, is that they managed to put in that expectation of what the thug life would sound like. So But they're also not belaboring it. I mean, you can believe that somebody would talk this way.
Now, Ben Affleck might not be the obvious choice for Matt Murdock, but you were never going to find a better Ben Urich.
Yeah, I never would have thought of him as Ben Urich, but he's a really good choice. Yeah. I mean, I remember when he even tried to ruin The Matrix, I'm telling you.
Oh, yeah, that was him. Yeah, he put on some pounds for that movie. Like, he looks like a totally different person here.
This guy's a terrific actor. I think
I forget his name right off the top of my head, but
he's one of those people that let's see here. TNT used to call them "Oh, that guy."
Oh, that guy.
I never remember this man's name, but I love him whenever I see him.
Now, obviously, when we do the director's cut, we'll talk about all this there, and I don't mean to just belabor this the whole way through the director's cut. But one of the problems with this movie is that in the other version. And I do like the 2Ds lit up with the fire. I don't care that they stole it from The Crow. But because they kind of did
I think it's
steal it
neat,
from The
but
Crow.
how did he do it? He's like, well, I brought my lighter fluid just to make sure that in case anybody has a cigarette.
That's a good point. But what I was going to say, yeah, right. He's like, it's water. But I don't know how that works. But what I was going to say is, one of the really disappointing things that I wouldn't have been disappointed with as much had I not seen the director's cut, of course, is that most of these supporting characters get their own mini character arcs. And Ben Urich gets a great one. Yeah. And they cut it completely out.
Oh, yeah.
Completely out. And in fact, he's got like 3 scenes that aren't in this. And in fact, when you get to the end, and you have that whole thing where he's like, I'm gonna write up. I found out who Matt Murdock is, and that he's Daredevil, and I'm gonna write it up. But then at the last minute, no, I'm not gonna write it. All of the reasoning, all of his motivation for why he decides not to publish that article is missing. Mm-hmm. There's a real reason. You can't say I'm nitpicking. It's gone. And I remember even when I was in the theater watching that, I was like, why does he suddenly have a change of heart on this? Like,
you're nitpicking.
What's the big thing? No, I'm not.
Movies don't have to make
sense.
You
can't say that. I don't care that you just said that. You can't.
Characters don't need motivation. Look, he's washing his hands of the subject. For those of you who are like,
it hasn't
Daredevil's
even
washing his hands.
Happened yet. He can't be. Anyway.
I like how beaten he looks right here.
We're in this scene where he's listening to his girlfriend breaking up with him over an answering machine, which I think is really a great move. I think this is really indicative of the kind of way he lives, and it's sad, But anyway, I could be wrong with this, but I think I remember hearing that that person's voice is actually the director's wife. I think that's who that is.
Yeah, I was going to say the voice sounds familiar, but I wasn't sure who it was.
Well, it's not anybody I know. I think he had his wife recorded. I forget. Though.
That makes sense. That's what you call cheap labor.
So, overall, how do you feel about Mark Steven Johnson as a director?
I haven't seen a lot of what he's done. I'll tell you.
For me, it's pretty much just been this and Ghost Rider.
Yeah, that's what it is for me. Like, I was in my head, I was like, did he do Ghost Rider? I think he did.
Yeah, he did Ghost Rider.
I don't like Ghost Rider, and this movie, I wonder if he's responsible for all of the ridiculous edits.
He's not. He's absolutely not. And in the director's cut, you need to watch this. There's a featurette in the director's cut that explains why all that happened, and it was one of the producers. Mark Steven Johnson has a great director commentary on the director's cut. You've got to listen to that, where he talks about how upset he was about what got cut. Yeah, it wasn't his fault at all. He was angry about it.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose, really, if you want to do something that's kind of stylistic, I think Mark Steven Johnson's a good choice. I mean, I don't really have a problem with his directing style. I have a problem with Ghost Rider in premise.
Yeah, I do too.
And I'm not talking about comic book Ghost Rider. I'm talking about the movie. I think there's so many things about the movie that are just corny and just inoperable. Now, granted, I think the casting...
That's also a much harder character to find a way to bring to screen.
Yeah.
Clearly. Daredevil just immediately has... like really interesting character motivations and character stuff. And Ghost Rider is about a visual. And it's just primarily about a visual, and it's really hard to bring that to screen. Yeah. And Mark Steven Johnson in his commentary on that talks about how difficult that was to do, and he didn't really manage it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. In this movie, I sort of feel like Daredevil's a little stockier than he should be. He's not a guy that has extremely fluid movements, and I don't think that I wonder if it's just how they decided to put the movie together. I wonder, because the movements are a little bit clunkier than what I would expect. Like, in that not opening scene, but when we first see him in the costume, and he's jumping across all those, I forget what you call them, but the things that hang outside of windows. You know what I'm talking about?
Just awnings?
Yeah, well...
What are we talking about?
Well, when he's jumping back and forth trying to get down that extremely tall building...
Yeah, okay, sure, I know what you're talking about.
He takes, like, definite pauses, and like, that would crush his legs. So I understand that they're trying to give the impression of a guy who can fall 20 flights and knows how to fall, but he is hitting, stopping, and then moving. And in my mind, I'm like, this is not a fluid motion. They're giving the impression, but not exactly what the intent is.
I think that is all problematic in the visual effects. I think that's all a CG thing. I think they simply didn't animate it quite right.
Yeah, and I also think
because all of that is animation.
Well, the fight scenes are cool. I sort of feel like the fight scenes are the same way. Is that?
Oh yeah, sure, I agree with you.
So
I think they're trying to make it grittier. I think part of it is that they can't help but compare their movie to Spider-Man, and they don't want it to look as fluid as Spider-Man. They don't want it to look as clean as Spider-Man, and that makes sense.
You know, that makes sense.
But what you're talking about is a lack of realism, and that's fair. I think that it is difficult to marry that idea with we're going to have this seemingly completely choreographed dance fight with him and Elektra here in a minute. You know what I mean? I think it's difficult to marry those two ideas.
I want to stop here real quick just to point out this mustard scene. Sure, it's funny, but what's really cool is what it says about Foggy. Here's a guy who's really comfortable with having a blind partner. It's not about him being blind. It's just it's a part of him.
Yeah.
So him taking advantage isn't so much him taking advantage of a blind man. Him taking advantage of a friend is just two buddies doing what friends do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was. I think it's impressive that they pulled that off in such a way where he doesn't seem like a jerk.
Yeah.
Since this is really his actual introduction. By the way, there is no way that Jennifer Garner's real eyes are that green. I don't care.
I'm not sure what your context don't exist.
I think that this is a great introduction for Elektra, and for Elektra in this movie. Okay, first of all, I realize that this is a very different character from the comics, and
I don't care.
And I don't care either. I like her here. I think she and Matt Murdock have a lot of chemistry together, and this was a relationship I cared about. I really did.
Yeah.
I cared about it a lot more than the director's cut. I like it a lot more when they don't sleep together, but I do like them together quite a bit. And that's a taste thing. I know there's a lot of people who don't. I know a lot of people hate that, but I think they're great. So whatever. I don't even care that they're not married anymore. I think they're great.
I'm gonna. I like it. I don't know. And I got to say that there's not a lot of movies where they'll have the female love interest walk in and like, oh, she's supposed to be stunning. She's supposed to be breathtaking. Well, in this movie, I'm like, Jennifer Garner is the one that.
And I'm actually buying it.
I'm like, oh my god! Like I could see somebody just go, whoo. Look at that.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to, be grotesque here. I mean, what's his name? Murdoch doesn't even have to look at her. He just smells her and goes like, well, I know this person's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting idea, too. But yeah, for the audience, yeah, she's absolutely breathtaking.
Indeed.
I'm with you. I don't think I'm being, a misogynist male saying that. She's supposed to be breathtaking, and they pulled it off. Absolutely. She is, by the way, by far one of my favorite actresses. I really like her a lot.
I can't even judge Murdoch for following her, because I'm like, they're just so charming with each other. Despite the fact that she's really trying to put on all the brakes here.
Yeah, and I think he's actually being really charming,
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about this kind of choreographed dance fight, as I called it? A lot of people, this is the thing that stopped them. I have heard people who said I was kind of on board with it until it got to the scene, and this was too goofy, and I just couldn't deal with it after this. What do you think?
It never bothered me. I always thought it was really funny because she seems like the type of person that would, he does grab her hand, which is something that a person wouldn't do to a stranger. And it seems pretty natural to me because he gets... Well, maybe this is a little bizarre that he tosses the cane in the air and then grabs it.
Yeah, that's kind of cartoon physics, really, but...
Yeah, but I think this is kind of indicative of the type of movie that Mark Steven Johnson would make. It's a little colorful.
This would work on a comic page better. I mean, I think that he's really choreographing a comic book scene right now.
Yeah, I think it's a little unrealistic, and he knows it, and he doesn't care.
And he's fine with that. Yeah, so's Bullseye. I mean, look, if all of this is working pretty well in this universe, this makes it easier to buy things like a guy who never misses.
Yeah. You see, I suppose the reason that this really works naturally for me is that we have two people who have trained themselves to work responsively. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying responsibly, I mean responsive.
Yes.
And so he grabs her. She tries to do some sort of a martial arts move on him, and his reaction is to prevent that using another martial arts move.
And then this turns into a first date. I don't know. I think it's a little charming.
I do too. And I like that she beats him here.
Another thing I really like about it is that...
And this is cute.
Once again, trying to put this into perspective, this is different than what we get usually with comic movies. By the way, that's another bit they cut out. There's some important exposition there that's now gone. I just want to throw that out there. But anyway, we learn a lot about her and where she comes from right there. I should mention this. He later on in this version will tell Foggy who she is and who his father is and who her father is and all that. She actually tells him all that right there. That's where he gets that information. It's gone now. but anyway, this is different than what we get in a lot of comic book movies where it's usually a superhero who dates a regular girl.
Yeah.
And then we get usually the exact same conflict, which is either she doesn't know who he is, and that he's a superhero, and so he always shows up late for dates and things, and that's where the conflict is. Or she does know. In the case of Spider-Man, we get both, right? Where then she does find out, and then he's always in danger, and she's worried about that. This gives us an entirely new set of conflicts.
Yeah.
When you have the two either superpowered or just really physically capable characters.
You know, I suppose that's one of the reasons that this movie is so interesting is that it's not extremely typical. It's you have well,
it is
the love interest is not a damsel in distress. I mean,
Yes.
well, granted, she becomes in distress at some point, and Daredevil does have to go to her aid.
Air quote damsel. Yeah, but he fails.
Yeah,
that's what I love about it. She stabs him in the shoulder, dude.
Yeah, she comes back.
Yeah.
It's Elektra. She's going to survive. Daredevil knows it. He's read the comics.
We talked over Kingpin's introduction. A lot of people, of course, when this came out, immediately thought that this movie wouldn't work at all because they cast a black Kingpin. I think it's a really interesting change, and I think it works just fine.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to say...
Plus, I love that actor.
Michael Clark Duncan, everything that guy does, even if what he's in is crappy, I love Michael Clark Duncan.
Me too.
He's in a TV show right now.
Oh, what's he in?
It's called The Finder. It's a spinoff from Bones.
And Bones did a spinoff.
Yeah,
cool. Is it good?
It's not as good as the episode that appeared in Bones, but
it's working.
It's working pretty well, and Michael Clark Duncan is really the guy that makes the whole series work.
I loved his guest star in Chuck.
I forget who he was.
He guest starred in Chuck. He was some mob boss guy, but he was great.
You know, that's what I love about the idea of, and maybe
he's such a character actor.
Maybe this is just a little bit of racism playing itself in American pop culture, but I like it when they have capable, competent, business-like black mob bosses.
Oh like yeah, me too.
Like.
That's why this works so well, because they kind of changed the character, but not entirely. Like, he's still very suave and sophisticated, you know? Mm-hmm. Even though he's still got a little bit of that urban thing going on. But he's not just kind of urban because he's black, he's urban because he grew up in Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
And I think that was really cool. I like that. The other thing it does that you didn't get in the comics is that it gives something for him and Daredevil to have in common. Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. They both grew up in Hell's Kitchen. I don't know if that was true in the comics, but I like that that's here.
They did in Spider-Man, the animated series.
Which animated series?
Good point.
What are you talking about?
The 90s one. They
90s. Okay. Sorry.
They did show the Kingpin growing up on the streets.
Did they really?
Yeah, I remember him being a fat kid running after his dad, who Well, anyway,
I don't know if
his
that's
dad
comic
ditched
book or
him.
not.
Yeah, that's why I said they did in the cartoon
I've read
series.
some of Miller, but not all of it, and I might not have gone back that far.
You know, I suppose this is something that you're talking about, like here. He pulls out this paper clip, and he straightens it and kills the man. And I think that's really neat. But
It wouldn't work.
yeah, maybe this wouldn't work in a world where people couldn't have a choreographed dance date fight.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's helping to set us up for kind of this being a quirky movie, and these kinds of scenes do help juxtapose a little bit the darker stuff.
Another thing,
Some people have said
love,
it's too jokey. Again, I think some of it is a taste thing.
Yeah.
I also think that maybe the theatrical cut is too jokey in a way the director's cut isn't, simply because that movie makes more sense. Because there's more story in it, and what story... Because the problem is that this ends up coming off as just a, girlfriend, revenge film, which is so downplayed in what I like to think of as the real version.
The real. I love
anyway.
how intense Colin. Oh God, what's
Farrell.
his name? Farrell. I almost said Firth. I'm like, no, that's the guy that's from all those British movies. Anyway, I love how intense Colin Farrell is and everything that he does in this movie. He's like you almost just see him shake. Well, in this scene, he's literally shaking because he's listening to this really annoying lady. But I find him so interesting, and I just can't stop watching him. Like right now, I'm trying to think like, what can I say about it that's not just, it's neat. Look at him.
I want to go back and IMDb this and find out who this old lady is and if she was ever in anything, because I think she's really, really great, and I also kind of wonder if she improv'd any of what she was just saying, or if it was all written for her, because she just goes on and on and on, and I've seen this movie so many times I got to the point where I started actually really paying attention to what she was saying.
Yeah.
And it's really funny. It's like she's talking about how she has a semi-colored son-in-law that she wasn't real sure about, but he's doing very well for himself on the internet. And they tried to give her a computer, but she didn't. But she was afraid to plug it in because she thought it might explode. And I love all that. And I'm somewhat bothered by the fact that I remember it.
No, it's fair. I always thought she was really funny. But then again, if I had to sit on a plane next to her for however long it takes to get to America from Ireland, I'd be like, oh my God, somebody kill me or her.
In some ways, I always thought that would have been almost a better introduction to Bullseye. I gotta tell you, Vince, I don't love this scene after I saw the director's cut, because this used to happen a lot later than this.
For me, I was never a problem. It is. But for me, when I was watching this movie the first time, it was never a problem, because I just liked the idea of watching him go out and patrol the city so much. The idea of the Guardian Devil being set up here, he guards the city, as opposed to just hunting down criminals.
Oh yeah, I like it a lot too. I think that so far it works until we get a little bit later and stuff starts getting really choppy because this got put here. That became a really major problem. The thing is, in the other version, this is what he goes and does from the roof when he and Elektra are standing on the roof. And in this version, he actually decides not to go stop something like this from happening. That's really problematic with this character.
Yeah.
And what's even worse is that, and I remember sitting in the theater thinking this, and I guess we'll get to it in a little bit, but when they're standing on that roof, and you hear this voice saying you think you can walk out on the Kingpin, or whatever it is he says, it is clearly that same guy's voice. Clearly, I remember in the theater going, that sounds like that guy he beat up earlier. You can tell it's the same guy.
He's a repeat offender.
That is how lazy this is. No, do not try to make this work. Don't do that. Because it ruins character motivation, it ruins the flow of the film, nothing works. I didn't like Karen Page in this the first time, just because she hardly gets anything to do, and I don't think in the theatrical version she's ever... Well, I think maybe she's called Karen once, but if you blink you miss it. Like, you wouldn't even be absolutely positive that's who she is.
You know, it never occurred to me. Like, when I was in the movie theater, I was like, cool, there's a blonde chick that works for him.
Yeah. Well, Karen Page used to be really important in Daredevil continuity.
Yeah.
She kind of mattered. Especially at the beginning.
Yeah, but not in this movie.
Okay, so I guess they've set this up in such a way where we're supposed to believe that the reason he's all depressed is because he beat up some guy in an alley?
It's a good point.
See, none of this is working.
I guess,
And where he's going to go from this is I guess I'm just not going to see Elektra ever again. After all the stuff he just did with Elektra before this, he's all, no, I'm just going to stop it before it even starts. Well, in again, what I call the real version, it actually makes sense.
In my mind, the reason why he was depressed right here is because he scared the, crap out of some kid. And, he was like, no, I'm not a bad guy, but the kid's not convinced.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with what he's talking about in this scene. In this, he's preoccupied with Elektra. What does that have to do with anything?
That's true.
With that scene that we just had. And again, it's just because they move scenes around.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's justifiable. I'm just saying I think that's their logic, is that...
I don't think they have logic.
Well...
I really don't think they're even thinking that hard about it.
I also think that they think characters like this are just predisposed to kill things before they even start. Like, why should I bother having a relationship because my life is not conducive to a relationship?
Sure, but the problem is he's already gone after her.
Mm-hmm. Like, I think that
he's gone looking for her.
No, you're right, but I think that
nothing happened that would have caught. And then we go to this scene where she shows up and sees it. Like what's changed his mind now that he wants to be with? Just Foggy talking to him? No, I don't buy it.
I think people like I think what they're trying to get at here is they're characterizing Daredevil as a type of guy who's kind of ruled by his impulses. So he smells her, he experiences her presence, and then he wants to go after her regardless of his better judgment.
I call that a stretch, but okay.
Well, I think that's what they're trying to set up here. Like, that'll make sense. We'll do that.
I don't know, man. I think they're just taking out what they think are the slow parts.
I think you're right. I think they're doing that, but them trying to weave the movie back together in this way, they're not doing it right. If they were doing it right, we would have had the director's cut in the movie theater.
Yeah.
But I think it's just an old hat thing to do. I think it's an easy choice to make that suddenly our main character is just self-hating and annoyed by life, and he doesn't want to have to, he feels like he can't have what he wants, but he'll still try to get them.
But Vince, this takes a character who at the beginning I thought was extremely sympathetic when he was a kid, and turns him into an extremely unsympathetic character.
Well, yeah.
Because what he does is he's going back and forth. Just in what we're watching right now, he's going back and forth on whether or not he wants to date this chick, and ultimately he's going to what's going to win out is I feel like going and having sex right now, and I'm not going to stop whatever is happening that this guy's yelling about that clearly is related to the Kingpin, which is the thing I'm trying to stop.
Yeah, no, I'm not arguing against your lot. You're right. It's just they're making him seem like an unsympathetic character, and that's kind of my point. Is that I get annoyed when they do that type of stuff. Oh yeah,
it's horrible. I don't think that I've seen another comic book movie more hobbled together than this, besides Spawn. I think that's the other one that is this hobbled together.
Well, when one of your main characters has to hobble around, all crouched down, hobbled together.
All right. Yeah, don't be upset if I don't laugh at that joke. Because it wasn't funny.
Oh, your face isn't funny. Daredevil denying somebody sanctuary because he's going to go have sex is not funny.
Yeah. I think even in the theater, I didn't like the fact that she just walks up behind him in the middle of New York City. I knew I'd find you!
Yeah.
How did you do that?
Yeah, that's really coincidental. And also this Braille necklace thing I kind of found coincidental.
Oh, very coincidental.
Like, oh, cool.
Is it supposed to be Braille?
Yeah, I think it was.
No, it's Braille at the end. She makes another one in Braille, which is... No, the one she has right there is not in Braille.
No, I think it is, because I think he just said it's Braille. He's like, yeah, I got it from my mom.
Does he actually say that?
Yeah.
Oh, I have to look at it again. I don't think so.
Quick, rewind. It won't screw up anybody.
No, I think there's a second one. at the very end, which is how she lets him know that she came back to life or is still alive.
I'm pretty sure that this one's Braille, but
No, I don't think you're right about that. I'll show you later. I've looked into this. I'm almost 100% positive that they're two different necklaces.
Okay,
but I'll show it to you later because we can't really do anything about it right now.
What do you say over a scene where two people are kissing and getting ready to not help a guy who desperately needs help?
Oh, it's terrible.
Especially when both characters are completely capable.
And especially after I've seen the version that does the exact opposite of this. I can't believe they shot it two different ways.
Yeah.
That's crazy talk. Like, he stops and he's like, oh God, I gotta go stop. And he's like, no, never mind.
They said, Mr. Affleck, how would you like to have a sex scene with Jennifer Garner? And he's like, yes, please.
Well, and literally, the producer that did all this stuff, and I want to use a bad word, but I'm not going to. But that guy, when he was interviewed, because again, there's a featurette, and he's on it, and he talks about why he did all that, and he's like, yeah, the movie was too slow, and we thought we needed a sex scene. I mean, that's really the reason he did this. There's no motivation for that. I mean, like, it doesn't make sense. They shot this later. It was never in the movie. I mean, they had to come back and shoot this.
You know, what's funny to me is that he cut an action scene for a sex scene.
No, he didn't cut an action scene. He moved it.
He moved it.
He moved it to earlier in the film.
But I just find it amusing that this very, very slow sex scene is what he calls making it faster.
Well, I don't think it's that. Yeah, I think it's just that it's also about like we think we have to have these particular like predictable things in these movies to make people like that. You know what I mean? It's all about demographics. It's like we need something for the women in the audience. Blah blah blah. That kind of crap. Yeah. Okay. Here's my biggest problem with this sex scene. We're gonna get a scene here pretty soon where Matt Murdock is going to make a really, really big deal out of her in this really beautiful dress. That works a lot better if they've not slept together. Think about it.
Yeah.
Works a lot better. You know what I mean? In the other version, what we get is this really good, slow in a good way, progression where we get to see these people getting to know each other. You know what I mean? Like dating used to work. These people get to know each other first. And one of the really sad things is that in that version is that she dies before they even get very serious.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that works so well about this movie when it's put together correctly.
I mean, that's one of the things that
I don't mean to be talking about the director's cut too much during this. I'm sorry. I don't know how not to, because this really is just this hobbled together, watered down version of a better film.
Yeah, that's one of those things that comic book fans or people in general tend to get kind of excited when character development works in a movie, because this is a prime example of how character development is not important to people who are trying to sell a movie.
Sure.
And they're willing to cut everything out just to make people go, do you see that? That was cool.
Yeah, and not even like character development, but it even gets worse than that. It's not even just character development. It's like people making sense at all. You know what I mean? Like putting the scenes together in such a way where it seems like a person would do this and then this scene would follow where they then do this. They don't even have that going in this movie.
Yeah, you know,
I'm telling you, if something closer to the director's cut had gotten released, this movie would not be remembered in the light that it's remembered.
Yeah. I mean, it's generally a forgettable movie.
Honestly, in the comic book movie world, it's notorious. It's not even forgettable. It's notorious. People talk about how it's one of the worst ones. It shows up on worst top 5, worst top 10 lists all the time. It's not that bad. Now, honestly, I don't think it's one of the worst 10 comic book movies.
Regardless of the director's
Regardless of the director's cut. But that's just me.
Yeah. Movies have their problems, but...
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
even without some of the motivations making sense, at least it's got good performances.
Yeah, as I said before, I'm never displeased by Michael Clark Duncan. And Jon Favreau, I never would have thought of him as Foggy Nelson, but he's such a perfect choice.
He's a perfect choice, yeah.
Like, Foggy Nelson.
He's got to be one of the most talented people in Hollywood. I can't believe that somebody could be that good of a comedic actor and that good of a director, because comedy is freaking hard.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is that this guy, he's even done things like, think of Jon Favreau in The Replacements, and then think of him in Daredevil. I mean, and then think what he does with other movies like Iron Man and Iron Man 2. And here's a guy who has dramatic range. And I don't mean dramatic as in dramatic, the opposite of comedy. I mean,
we got you. Profound would be a better word.
Indeed. What a beautiful
dress,
dress.
man.
Now that I've seen everything underneath it.
Well, to be fair, he hasn't seen anything.
Well, you see with your eyes, not your hands.
Like, how does he make his radar sense work during set? Well, anyway. But I do like that. You can see more stuff. Because of the smoke and stuff, and or is it that he actually can't see as much because of the smoke? I kind of am lost on that.
I like the expression on his face when he gets the smoke blowing in his face. I don't know. It's almost anti-smoking. I think it's neat.
Does he have... I mean, I know he has heightened senses, but does he have anything akin to, like, super hearing? Like, when he and Elektra were on that roof, was it that, like, he could hear that guy, but she couldn't?
I would almost bet money.
Yeah, I always thought that that's kind of how it was playing. But what I didn't really like about it was that it looked like it was shot in such a way where that was just like a building over. You know what I mean? Like, It seemed like she would have been able to hear that. It's like it's an alley underneath them. It's kind of how it looked.
That's what I always thought, but
it's kind of a perspective thing because, I mean, we don't get both of those in one shot. But I don't know why, but like that's how it feels when you're watching it. It's shot in such a way where it feels like that's where it is.
I mean, well, Daredevil definitely has super hearing, so it never occurred to me that that stuff was really far away. That's a good point.
Well, it would have to be if she didn't hear it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, really, if you're up on the, even up that high, if there's somebody in an alley next door saying, "You think you can blah, blah, blah with a kingpin?" Like, you'd hear that.
Yeah. And that makes her more redeemable, but
beer
still,
bottles breaking.
He's not redeemable.
Well, she's not that redeemable. I mean, she's got the skills. Why didn't she go stop it?
Well, if she didn't hear it.
Oh, if she didn't hear it. Yes, absolutely.
So we can accept her as...
this whole scene, I'm sorry, it just doesn't work. When she, I wanted to look beautiful for you, blah, 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 blah. You guys just had sex last night.
Something that bothers me a little bit is that she's impressed that he walks up the stairs, but they had that choreographed dance fight at the beginning.
Is she really impressed by that? I don't think she's really impressed by that.
No, well, he gets up to the stair, or up to the top of the stairs, and she says something like, "You're really amazing." You know that?
That's not what she says. He says, "I knew I'd find you," which is a callback to something they keep saying together over and over again.
See, I always took
which
that
is
as,
played up a lot more in the other version.
I always took that as she looks at a guy, or he was this blind man who weaves his way up the stairs and finds her.
No, she's impressed because he made it, because he showed up to the thing in the first place. Not that he made it up the stairs. She didn't know if he'd come. That was Frank Miller, by the way, who gets the thing in his head.
Oh, good.
That was his little cameo. I always like that.
Oh, I mean that's really neat. I don't mean.
Oh, Vince. He hasn't written All-Star Batman yet. By this point, okay. I don't think he had quite hit crazy in 03. I think he was getting closer.
Do we have a lot of comic book creator appearances in movies other than Stan Lee?
Not a whole lot. Honestly, I haven't looked into it much because I would assume that there are probably some that I just wouldn't notice because I don't know what certain people look like.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Comic creators aren't exactly the kind of people who show up a lot visually.
That's true. Some people are very visually striking but would never show up, like Alan Moore, who lives in a cave with a big beard or something.
Yeah, I don't know why he doesn't get drawn into panels all the time.
Yeah.
This guy playing Elektra's father is a character actor. I've seen him in 1,000 things. He's been all over the place. Yeah. He's in Heroes, and he's in an episode of Enterprise, a really bad episode of Enterprise. He's done all kinds of stuff. And he's always he's played probably a different ethnicity in every role he's ever played. Like he gets roles for Greek people, like here, and he gets roles for people from India, and I don't know why he gets to play like every nationality there. He was in he was in 24. He was even a different nationality there. He's been in everything. I think he was in 24. I forget. Yeah.
The only thing I really remember him from is Mr. Deeds.
I didn't even see that. Yeah, but he's been in a lot of movies and TV shows.
He is a terrific actor, and that's one thing. If you can pull off an accent. That's the thing is that if you're really good at it, you can be casting just about anything. It would almost be more beneficial to be a character actor than it would be to be a leading actor, or at least in my opinion. It's almost more respectable because if you can act like yourself well, that's nice, but if you can convince people that you're an entirely different person, that's impressive.
Practically, you'd prefer to have a regular role on something so that you know that you have job security. Obviously,
yeah.
That's the difficulty with that. I mean, like guys like this guy, I forget his name. He's another one of those that guys. I forget his name. But people like him and Tony Todd have made a career on this, where they manage to get roles all the time. Not everybody can manage that, of course, and a lot of that is because they have these like really striking appearances, and either that or they just fit for a lot of different kinds of roles. You know, that guy gets a lot of these kind of father roles, or like he'll play like wise shaman type characters and things like that.
Or maybe they're classically trained, and these people just tend to get those type of roles.
I think that this fight scene here, when we have the CG bit where Daredevil kicks Bullseye off of his motorcycle, that looks a little dated. That looks like a video game cutscene, man. Like that CG is not working so well. The textures look really fake. They look like action figures.
Yeah,
it didn't bother me in the theater, but it bothers me.
I love that the explosion screws up his radar senses, and he can't grab the.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think that they're very thoughtful about how his powers work. And how it affects his day-to-day life. We didn't talk about this earlier, but the whole, and there's even more of it in the director's cut, but the whole business of like he has to fold bills certain ways so that he knows which ones they are. I like that, and like you said, the water coffin. I like that Matt Murdock in this can't read by feeling textures. I think it limits him in an interesting way.
Yeah, I wonder if that's for appearances, but he doesn't seem to be obsessed with appearances. He's willing to dance fight with a woman.
What do you mean?
Like, I'm not Daredevil. I'm actually a blind man. This Daredevil's a guy that could conduct himself as if he wasn't blind at all.
Oh, what I was talking about was the thing like in the comics, he could read raised textures.
Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. I just didn't know what that had to do with what you're talking about.
Meaning that by having a braille printer, by trying to show people that he is like a typical blind man. Oh, Ben Urich knocked the cane out of my hand, so I have to let him pick it up.
I think some of that is there, but I also think that this version is just more limited in what he can do than the comic version. Like, I think they took some of his abilities away, which makes it a little more interesting.
I'm sorry, I started watching the movie. But, but yeah. So, I don't know. Sometimes I think that he's just trying to put up appearances. He's like, no, I want people to believe this about me. But other times,
is that a skateboard?
Well, he does skate a guy down a railing at the beginning of the movie.
That was weird. He threw this thing over and it looked like a miniature skateboard. I couldn't figure out what that was. Well, anyway, some strange things in those boxes he was knocking over in his apartment.
Daredevil needs a skateboard so that he can get around during his extreme 90s phase.
Right. I really like that they kept the Catholic stuff in.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is that Daredevil for me is not Daredevil if it doesn't have some religious themes.
Yeah, I think it's got to. What do you we've talked before, and I think we maybe even did a whole podcast on it once about having like popular music in movies and having it like behind scenes and stuff. I think it works here in a way that it doesn't work in, say, Smallville a lot of the time.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is that Smallville's so hung up on teen angst that if you're trying to use rock music to actually enhance a mood rather than just thematically match a scene.
Which is what it ought to be there for.
I mean, I've had discussions with this about people like, oh, but the theme of the song is the same thing. Doesn't matter. It's more upbeat than what the scene needs to be.
Fair enough, yeah. What's appropriate about using this Evanescence song here is that, it does do a good job of setting the mood, but there's not a lot of dialogue in this scene. There's a little bit. But a lot of a lot of the story that's being told here is with facial expressions.
Yeah.
And once again, this is still a lot stronger if they haven't had sex. Just want to throw that out there.
You know, another thing is that the Evanescence song is just a really
See, I think it bothers me more than Vince, so I feel like I have to bring it up every time.
No, it is bothersome.
Oh, okay.
But,
sorry. He's like, yeah, but you said it already, so I don't have to say it.
I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't really have anything else to add other than jokes that are going to come later, probably. But,
okay, I'm sorry. I will try to stop belaboring that.
but I like how low-key, and I don't know any musical terms, but I like how soft this song is, and that's what makes it work. I mean, there's a lot of
I think that's the musical term for it. Soft.
Yeah, we'll call it that.
Okay.
But you get movies like this that, well, not movies like this, but you'll get scenes like this where they will use some song that is just really loud and in your face and lamenting, and in this song, it's not loud and in your face, but it is lamenting. So they get the actual mood that's necessary.
Yeah.
And that's why it doesn't work a lot of the time.
Yeah, when it's not working is when it's distracting enough where you're thinking, man, this could have just used traditional score.
Yeah, you know, and it makes the scene seem insincere. It makes what's happening on the scene seem like a parody of what's actually happening.
I like how they do these callbacks with these characters. By the way, Wilson Fisk just laughing, I think, is really funny. I mean, him at a funeral in that like a bright like stripy suit, and just like looking at two people really depressed about Electra's father dying and finding it amusing is really funny.
I think it's a neat touch to have the rose on the casket.
Oh, absolutely, it is. Sure.
And here's Kevin Smith. I was really jazzed about this when I first saw the movie. I was like, oh my god, that's Kevin Smith! I freaked out.
He, of course, does a lot of cameos and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Is
he had a cameo in TMNT.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Which, of course, was a lot later, but I'm just saying. He's had cameos in lots of stuff.
He's that's the thing, is that I think that Kevin Smith's one of those guys that's got a finger and, well, you know, he's got an iron in every fire, we'll say that. But, and I intentionally messed that thing up. But, I find him interesting, and I was really super happy to see him in this, but I'm not one of those guys that thinks Kevin Smith is capable of anything.
Oh, no, me neither.
I like that he's involved in things. I like that he's just there.
Well, and also, you know, he has every right to be in this movie.
Yeah.
Clearly, his run was influential on this film, I think more than anybody talks about.
Yeah. You know, despite who the villain is, and I would say that thematically, tonally, that Smith is the big influence. You know, obviously the plot's...
No, I'm not saying for plot so
yeah,
much.
I mean, like, obviously the plot's coming from Miller, so it's neat that they both get a cameo.
They marry well. I mean, it works really well. I think Bullseye and Kingpin on screen together are really funny. And I love. Oh, by the way, in the credits, this guy who's got all the pencils in his neck I gotta mention this. He is miscredited, if I remember right. We'll look for it when we get there. I believe he is miscredited as man with pen in neck. He's got 3 pencils with erasers. He's man with some pencils in his neck.
They're erasable pens. But he's trying to get it.
But yeah, you know, when he throws the pencil and it hits the what do you call it?
The fly at the end of the movie?
No, not the fly. The
olive.
The olive. I couldn't think of olive, man. Thank you. But I don't know. I like that. After a while, I found myself just trying to count all the different things he managed to hit. And I like that his whole character arc is, this guy made me miss. Mm-hmm. And it makes me upset.
You know, I like that he doesn't have to have a big one. I like that he's just a crazy guy.
We don't know where he came from. I don't think we have to. He's not the
Ireland.
main character. No, that's not what I mean. We don't know what his background is, what his past is.
I like that he's disgusted by the smell of the rose, too. I find that it's You know, that's the thing, is that this guy, Colin Farrell really pulls off a psycho.
Yeah.
He's just... I believe that this is a guy that loves killing. I believe that this is a guy that's his entire existence, his raison d'etre.
Wow, well done. There is definitely some weird, lazy stuff in this movie, and one of the bigger ones is the line, "I want a bloody costume." Be it bloody or effing, whichever version it is, mm-hmm. It's a fun line when we see it, but there's no payoff for it, because we are now expecting him to look different the next time we see him, and he's wearing the exact same outfit. That makes no sense.
They polish his coat so it's shinier.
Yeah, it's like that's the big thing he's thinking about. He's all, you made me miss. I'm all upset. and I want a costume. And I remember that being one of the big selling points in the commercials. Like they used that, if I remember right. And like even in the theater, everybody's like, yeah, that's a great line. And then when he shows up later, it's like, why is he wearing the same thing?
You know, that brand on his forehead is so interesting that it's almost a shame to lose it. So I would, they could have just cut the line. I mean, great, it's a funny line, but
he can still have a costume that accentuates that, where he doesn't have to have the black mask or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he could just have the black and white costume.
Yeah, sure.
Just that unitard, I guess, is what it would be. A unitard and boots.
Ultimately, I can't really even figure out why he even thinks about that. You know what I mean? Like, I want a costume. The only person who really has a costume in this is Daredevil.
Yeah, maybe he's just crazy.
Well, yeah, sure. But then why doesn't he get a costume? And there's no explanation for that in either version. It's just like, I want a costume. Wouldn't it be great if Kingpin was just like, if that scene ended with Kingpin going, no. like in all the commercials, we just see that over and over again. I want a costume. Like, you go to the movie theater, no.
Grow up. What's wrong with you? Strange people.
I
love the aesthetic of these bags.
The aesthetic is great. The practicality is non-existent.
Well,
it's like somebody has to clean that up.
Well, she's rich. She has a bunch of maids and butlers and whatnot that can come in with a big vacuum, just some huge vacuum, and go, this rich lady just ticks me off.
I hope none of them ask any questions. It's like she's got a sign in this bag with a picture of this guy's face on it.
She just wanted a sandbox and hanging empty slashed bags. She wanted.
So we are strangely already getting pretty close to the end of this movie, and we are only an hour and 12 minutes in.
Yeah.
And this version makes the framework seem like the plot.
Yeah.
And that's what's really weird about it, is that we have skipped so much of what the actual story was in this movie. There's an entire mystery, if you've not seen the director's cut, by the way. There's an entire mystery that's completely gone. That's the actual story, pretty much, for this. Because the real story for this movie was supposed to be Daredevil trying to bring down the Kingpin and how that happens. Mm-hmm. And he still manages that in this movie, but they cut all of it out. So when we get to the end, it's like the word's out on the Kingpin. When did that happen? Where was that in this movie?
I always wondered what that was about. I'm like, wait, the word's out on the Kingpin. What are you talking about?
When did that happen? Yeah, well, because you skipped all the whole movie, and so you skipped all the plot. I'm not talking well. And so this version just irritates me so much I lose my ability to speak. Because what it got a lot of flack for was turning into just simply a "you killed my father" story. Mm-hmm. And that's not what it is.
Yeah. For two people, it's a "you killed my father" story.
Yeah, and this ultimately, all this stuff here, it actually seems much more important in the director's cut because it comes after a lot more interesting things. That there's so much going on, in like the world of the Kingpin. That he feels like much more of a puppeteer pulling all the strings, and he has caused all this to happen, and that's all gone here. You're not even thinking about the Kingpin during these scenes.
Yeah.
You should be.
That's the thing, is that in my head I'm totally thinking about Bullseye. I'm like, oh, he made me miss, and I almost forget.
Well, and I'm thinking about how ridiculous she's being, just assuming that it must be him simply because that was the weapon. Yeah. Now the director's cut doesn't fix that. It's just that this is so in the background in that version that it doesn't fix it, but it doesn't feel as big of a problem because I don't find myself thinking about it as hard. It's still a problem. I mean, that's not a perfect movie by any means.
Well, yeah, but what movie do you see that's perfect?
Well, but I mean, it's not even close to perfect. I mean, it still has some pretty major inherent flaws. It's just there is a better version.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. I always had a problem with her just jumping to conclusions in this. And personally,
it's pretty ridiculous.
I also have problems with anything that's like, well, let's pit these two people against each other until they realize that they shouldn't be fighting, and now we'll work together.
Yeah.
And there was a cartoon release of Daredevil versus Spider-Man, and I was like, oh, that sounds really cool when I was younger, and I bought it, and it turned out to just be Daredevil and Spider-Man helping each other. So
yeah,
it's a trope that annoys me. It's like they have to put that in somewhere.
Yeah, that's the way it's got to be every time. Mm-hmm. There's a Tit comic that makes fun of that, where like he gets together with Paul the Samurai, And Paul the Samurai is like, I'm trying to fight my bad guy, and I don't need your help, and like it's really important that I do this by myself. And the Tick's like, yeah, but isn't there a rule? Just the fact that we're both here right now, isn't there a rule?
I saw you, therefore it is a crossover.
So this is one of those things where it is really cool how like straight from the page this scene is, but it doesn't have the emotional weight that it had on the page.
Yeah, she seems really nervous. I wonder if she actually knows who Bullseye is.
What do you mean?
Like, she just had a moment where she had to psych herself up just to take on Bullseye. And I wonder why. Like, she didn't even know about his existence until just now.
No, she didn't. Because, I mean, Daredevil was like... Daredevil says, it was a hitman named Bullseye, and she says liar. I'm like, that's a weird thing to make up. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just gonna create the name of some hitman right off the top of my head right now. You know what I mean? That would be like if you and I were fighting, and I was like, it was a hitman named Mr. Peacock, and you're like, liar!
Slappy Kincaid. That guy does everything.
It was a hitman named Spatula Face. Liar!
It was a hitman who works at Spatula City.
Yeah. We sell spatulas, and that's all.
You know, this movie is really gritty, and I appreciate it, especially in this scene where he just takes her down. I mean, it's a different Elektra. I don't have a problem with it. So if it were the Elektra from the comic books, I mean, of course you'd have a problem with this being such a quick scene.
And the problem with Elektra, which maybe eventually we'll do a commentary on, is that they had every opportunity to take her from this and turn her into the real Elektra, or the comic book version. It's like this is kind of her origin story. You know, like she has to die before she can become that version.
Yeah.
And I like that. And that means you can do anything you want to with her here, and you know, it works okay. I remember this being really rough in the theater. And I've seen, and I think since this, I've been even more desensitized to violence, where this doesn't bother me as much. But like when she catches that sign in her hand, we're past it already. But when she caught that sign in her hand, God, that bothered me. I remember telling my mom at the time, "Don't take my sister to see this." You know, I think that's going to be a little too rough for her. You know, at the time. And, you know, my sister's like 5 years younger than me. She was like 12 or 13, and I was like, I don't think she's going to be able to handle that scene.
You know what?
She went and she was fine, so I guess I was wrong. But it bothered me a little bit, and even the card on the neck thing and everything, I was just like, But that's not a problem. You're supposed to feel that way, you know. Like, it's just that
it is intense.
I wish at this point that the movie hadn't made me think that this character is stupid.
Yeah.
You know, with the whole jumping to conclusions thing and everything, because ultimately, if she wasn't so impulsive and stupid, she wouldn't have gotten killed so fast.
Yeah. You know, it doesn't bother me, the violence in that scene, actually, when he stabs her, but when she catches the sai through her hand,
that hurts.
That does. Like, that's kind of grim. And I also think it's weird that she gets stabbed and they show it pushing through her upper back, and when she falls on the ground, the wound is in her lower back.
Oh, that's weird. I never noticed that before.
I always thought that was strange. And also the entrance of the sai doesn't actually make sense with how it's pushing through in the back of her costume.
And of course, like always, you have that thing where people in movies always inevitably, if they get stabbed, pull it right out.
Yeah.
Like in real life, you wouldn't want to do that.
Well, he pulled it out, I think. The bullseye.
No, from her hand.
Oh, yeah.
When it was in her hand. No, she immediately goes, and pulls it out. I'm like, yeah, we don't think you'd want to do that.
She's in the middle of a fight, so trying to...
I would just fight with it in there.
Yeah, health reasons, I think, might prevent her from...
Well,
keeping the side.
I think at the point that you get stabbed in the hand, you're probably not going to win. It's like, I think you got a handicap at this point that's a little... I like this actor playing the main cop in this. I don't remember his name, but he plays... I just want to throw this out there real quick for anybody interested. He plays a character in Birds of Prey.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's the second actor who plays Reese's. I'm pretty sure it's the same guy who plays Reese's evil father, who's a mob boss guy, and he gets a face change, and that's the guy who his face changes to.
That's interesting.
And he's great in that. He's in one episode, but he's really good in that. But yeah, he's played a lot of cops, I think.
That's one way to fire an older actor. Plastic surgery. You're fired. Oh.
Yeah, I think it was probably one of those things where they just couldn't get him back.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And then later on, they did the same thing in a Smallville episode.
Well, that's
with another mob boss.
With some ridiculously over-the-top song that's just thematically, you got your face changed.
Yeah, it was telling us exactly what was going on. You know, you've always said that bothers you when there's a song that sort of goes along with the scene and is sort of telling you what's going on. Did it bother you that there's a song in Daredevil with lyrics that say Daredevil in it? It was like, come on, Daredevil! Is Daredevil fighting? That bugged me a little bit in the movie theater. I was like, really? They're singing Daredevil, and he's fighting?
I'll tell you what bothered me about it. It's a crappy song.
Oh, all right.
I just hated that song. Like,
I thought it was all right.
Like it was made for the movie, obviously.
Yeah. He's a man without fear. Oh, that's clever. Well done. Okay. In the theater, this was maybe my least favorite part. When they're fighting on the pipe organ, partially because I thought the CG wasn't very good. This stuff just doesn't look very good. But also because did there have to be bats in the pipe organ? Really? You're already fighting at the top of a church in the third act of your comic book movie. I'm already thinking Batman.
Yeah.
Then you've got bats in your pipe organ, and what are the odds? It's not like nobody's been in this church for years. It gets used all the time. There are bats in your pipe organ? Okay, look, if there are bats in your pipe... I know I'm belaboring this, but if there are bats in your pipe organ, that means Sunday morning when somebody starts playing the organ, they are going to fly out of the pipe organ.
Yeah, maybe it's just...
In church.
Maybe it's just for looks. Maybe it doesn't, maybe it's not actually a fully functioning pipe organ.
I really doubt that. Very seriously. That is a very expensive look, and it doesn't look old either. I mean, like, it looks like it's kept up.
Well, they clean the pipes, but they don't clean in the pipes.
That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
Well, anyway, no, I think if you have a regular Catholic church, that looks like a big Catholic church. A lot of people go there. That pipe organ is working, man.
Yeah. You know what? They use bats because they couldn't really have devils fly out.
I always really like that bit where he's lost all of his projectiles in his belt and he's like scrounging in there hoping there's more.
Yeah,
I like that. There's some nice little subtleties. Yeah, I mean,
I kind of wonder why.
There's no way, but
I kind of wonder why Daredevil waited for him to catch all of the glass that he just broke instead of just drilling him in the face.
And this is a little lazy, just the way this is cut together. He takes one handful and throws it all real quick. And the way it's shot when Daredevil's bat flipping and they're in bullet time. They're all coming one at a time at him. Well, that wouldn't happen. They'd all come at once, but then they cut back to him, and now he's throwing them one at a time. And I'm like, what happened to the big group of 12 you just tossed at him? It's sloppy.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I kind of wonder why does he know? Is there any point within this movie that he realizes that Daredevil has this weakness to sound?
I was wondering that too. Well, he just figured it out.
Yeah, why would you think? Oh my God, Daredevil's winning! I'm going to pull the bell.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of an accident thing just now, where he hit that, and then Daredevil kind of reeled, and so he was like, oh, yeah.
I thought it was he pulled the bell and then he noticed Daredevil's in pain. He's like, oh, that's weird.
And is he not even wondering why? I mean, is he like, does nothing occur? He's just like, oh, wow, he's got a weakness. If it were me, I'd be like, how does that work?
He'll probably think about that later this evening and be like, huh, I wonder why that happened.
Later this evening when he's laid up in the hospital shooting flies.
Yeah.
While he's doing that, he's just thinking, wow, I bet that guy has some kind of a handicap or something.
And then he's going to follow Daredevil around and try to get in Daredevil's mind and do things that Daredevil does.
There is, of course, a big character thing here that doesn't work in either version, because it's the same both ways, where Daredevil throws him out of this window. Mm-hmm. And he falls in that car, and he survives. But there's absolutely no reason Daredevil would have expected that he would survive that.
Yeah.
Right? And he breaks every bone in his body, so he didn't, survive by much, right? But then at the end of the movie, he's all like holier than thou with I'm gonna save the Kingpin because I'm not the bad guy. It's like what happened between this and the 10 minutes later when you're fighting Kingpin that made you decide now I'm not the bad guy? I mean, he's being all clever now. He goes, bullseye, ha ha ha! I'm so clever, and then right?
Yeah. You know, there's another thing that happens in this scene that kind of bothers me is they have a sniper shooting through stained glass like he knows where either of them are.
That's a great point. How
It's
can you
a stained
even
glass
see him?
window.
Stained glass window.
It's like
they're up there
there's
somewhere.
silhouettes in this dimly lit church.
I'm gonna get him. And then I love that you've got the it's so goofy. You got the priest there. It's like go get him. He doesn't say that, but you know he's just like whatever.
Good job killing that guy. Now go get the other one.
Yeah, well done. I completely agree with you.
You are forgiven. You are given license to do what you do, despite the fact that I told you I can't do that.
I really didn't like the fact that guy exposed that I've got bats in my pipe organ.
Maybe that's making us. Maybe that's making a statement about religion. Even I mean.
Oh, please don't read too much into that.
Yeah.
That was them trying to come up with a cool money shot. That has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. All right.
No, that's fine. If you want to read into it, go ahead. That's fine.
I mean, I think that
I'm sure you're thinking harder than they were.
No, I don't doubt that.
Go ahead.
There, but to read into it a little bit, I mean, what it would say about religion is that it's fine in theory, but in practice, it's impractical.
Yeah. What you just mean
the whole
being totally pacifist or
being a pacifist, not killing people. I mean, he's like, well, obviously that guy.
In this case, it had to happen. Yeah. Well, that's the thing is that I don't know why they couldn't have just choreographed that in a way where it was self-defense. Like, why couldn't they have had him fall out that window, like, without being a victim at that point? You know what I mean? Like, he loses his hand just because I guess they thought it was clever. Oh, he's got holes in his hands. That'll be clever. And then why have him just knock him out the window? Pretty sure once he's got the holes in his hands, there's nothing he can do because he's like, have mercy. Well, yeah, Daredevil. Maybe that's the moment that you can show that you found yourself and show your true colors, and then just drag him out by his feet or something, but not toss him out a friggin' window. Kind of overkill.
Yeah.
Right? And then here's just gonna be like, I'm not the bad guy, you know. Like I wounded Kingpin and he's down on his knees and I could kill him if I wanted to. They're also up in a high place. Why didn't you throw him out the window? None of this is working.
It's because he can't lift the Kingpin, that's why. The Kingpin's just too big, so he has to let him survive.
Yeah. I do like that Kingpin has seen Matt Murdock by this point.
Yeah, I like that.
And so he gets to take the mask off and he knows who he is. He's like, what?
And I love that he dresses down for this. I love that
cool.
Instead of just fighting Daredevil as a big suited man,
we get a street fight, which is what it should be.
He's like, hey, this is the reason that I am the way that I am. It's because I grew up in a hard part of town.
And all of this really helps validate the casting choice.
Yeah.
I don't think it's, again, let me reiterate, I don't think it's too typical. I don't think it's like, well, he's a black guy, so he's got to have a street fight. I think it just fits.
Yeah. No, that's the thing.
Fits
is that
together.
It predates this movie, the idea that he's from the streets, so it makes sense that he's going to do what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But and I also like that he finds a way to make the environment work for him here.
That is just like definitive Daredevil.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is that here's a guy with his superpower is his handicap, and he has to be clever at times.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. And I also kind of like that it's like, there is no reason that you'd have all this water in here.
At some point, the Kingpin...
I'm going to use your stupid aesthetic.
Oh, my God. When he kicks Kingpin in the knees, when Daredevil kicks Kingpin in the knees here at the end of this movie, oh, my God, that freaked me out when I saw it the first time. It still kind of does.
They cut a lot out of this fight, and I always kind of wondered why they did, because all of this... is a lot more interesting when you have like when he walks in, Kingpin like throws him up against the ceiling and all kinds of stuff, and like it throws him around a lot. Like he feels like a much more of a threat in the other version, and in this he seems a little easy. Like he beats him a little too quick, maybe a lot too quick.
Here's a question: did he break aquariums, or were there plumbing? Because it seems to be that somebody's turned off the faucet. Water just stops running.
I know, that bothered me too. It's just like, no, he did not have all that much water in his aquarium.
Here's something that I hate when they do in movies. When the guy just he swings it and then intentionally misses,
especially when it's in slow motion.
Yeah, I'm like if you're gonna swing it, do something, knock him out, kill him, whatever. But that's just like.
Well, yeah, because it's just for the benefit of the audience. When they flip to it, what he's really done is just stop before he hits him, like you said. But he's got this really hard swing motion. So what, did he just beat the crap out of his shoulder? What happened?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Well, he just hits
Somehow.
the ground, and that happens in lots of movies.
Yeah.
I don't understand why you had to do that. It was dramatic, sure, but it was also nonsense.
What I could see is you raise up because you're thinking about it, and then at the last minute, maybe the camera angle changes and you toss it behind you. Or you throw it or something.
Or he raises it up above his head, thinks about it, and they show Kingpin, and then the cane drops next to his head.
Yeah. I mean, I can see changing the camera angle for dramatic effect. That's not the problem. It's just you come down really hard like that. Something needs to happen.
Yeah. I mean, and they've even, there's a movie called Undercover Brother where they make fun of that. And,
oh, yeah?
A guy jumps in the air and does this, ridiculous Bruce Lee kick, and you hear something crunch. And then you see the guy on the ground, and there's a bag of chips underneath the kicking man's foot. And he's like, I was going to eat those.
What I think works, and I've seen this in a lot of movies, what I think does work is when you have somebody who's got a gun, and they're aiming at a person, and you think they're going to shoot him, and then they shoot it at something else that does something. You know what I mean? Where they take the gun and they shoot it at maybe like a rope or something that causes something to happen, and maybe the guy gets hit by something, but he doesn't get killed. Something like that. Yeah, I love that you got the evil villain laugh. Kingpin's got his evil villain laugh.
And I'm not saying that...
hey, I'm not done with you yet. I like that part. Sorry.
I like that he says, I'm going to get you.
I like I'm not done with you yet.
Yeah.
It's not over. I like that. I wish the movie had done better and had been a little bit better to have done better enough to get a sequel.
Yeah.
Because I would like to see Duncan in this role again.
If and when they do the reboot, just cast him again. They did a reboot with Ghost Rider and cast the same guy and made the same wrong choices. So
you don't think he's a little too old at this point?
I don't care. I still love him. I think he's great. He's still pretty young looking too. I mean.
Okay, all right. I haven't seen him in anything in a while, so.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been 8-9 years now.
Yeah, I like that they keep this alligator thing going.
It's in 4 scenes in the movie. He keeps talking about it. None of those got cut out. By the way, that's Jennifer Garner's stunt double.
Oh yeah,
that's who that is. That was pretty cool.
I always kind of thought she did look a little like Jennifer Garner.
Yeah, that's because it's her stunt double.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I think that anytime you have a restaurant or a coffee shop or something called Joe's, it's a total missed opportunity if you don't have a sign that says "Eat at Joe's." I think it's a missed opportunity.
Sleep at Joe's. Sleep with Elektra at Joe's.
All right.
Oh. He's so beaten and upset, moping out the door.
Yay for fun continuity.
Yeah,
where he sniffs the cop to see if he's gonna have a mouthful of mustard again.
You know what's interesting is they demonstrate that they have respect for continuity in this movie,
and then they don't.
And they
either
it's like somebody made a movie, okay, and then the producers came in and cut the crap out of it.
Let me ask you this question real quick while we're looking at it. What is the point of this edit coming up right here? He's walking. We're gonna cut to him walking some more. I don't like that. I don't like fading to the same character, even if it's a different scene. I think it looks weird. Just saying. That is a stupid thing to complain about. But okay, so here's the Braille necklace. And he says, oh, it's Braille. This is not the same necklace. She, either got that made or went and got it or something, but it's not the same necklace. I
think he says Braille here because he's like, oh, this is Elektra's necklace.
No, that's not what he does. You really, trust me on this. He says Braille because she knows that he's blind and he would read Braille. She's leaving him a clue in the form of that necklace.
Why not just send a letter?
Because I don't know.
It's less dramatic.
Yeah, it's less dramatic. but I've seen Elektra recently because I was working on that for my trivia book, mm-hmm, and she's got that necklace and that. And I'm telling you, it's not Braille. It's different. It's just a design. There's some design.
Well, okay.
I would like to know what the Braille says.
It says Matt Murdock because it's convenient.
So yeah, once
He
again,
conveniently deletes his article.
he just conveniently deletes it.
Why
we don't
just
even get the scene. Well, there's that, but yeah, which
Why
is
not just
goofy.
delete the whole thing?
But we don't even get the great scene where they're talking in front of the church, and Matt's trying to convince him not to publish it, and he says, "I'm a writer, kid. That's what I do." He get every cool scene with him got cut out.
Yeah.
You know, they had no dialogue together in this entire movie, but at the end they kind of sort of know each other.
Well, they had a slight dialogue.
Yeah, a little bit, but not enough that we buy any sort of rapport.
Yeah, it was all about, like, you gotta go save Elektra or something like that.
They literally seem to have this logic that, well, because he found out he's Daredevil, that's all we need. That's all we need. I'm gonna be we can talk through this, but I do want to watch for Man with Pen and Net, because I'm pretty sure it's in there. Anyway, talk about something.
But, so I was at the grocery store the other day.
Oh, yeah? Talk about something related to this movie.
So I was at the grocery store the other day reading Daredevil.
Oh, were you? Okay. Owner's friend.
But, you know, that's one thing that I really
Bully
liked
number
about this
one.
movie.
Man with pin and head.
Pin and head. Not neck, head.
Does that say, yeah. Oh, it's head even. Oh, okay. That's funny. Which is weird because, like...
Man with pen and head would have been, what, Frank Miller?
Frank Miller, but it wasn't a pen. It was something.
Man with object in head.
Yeah, with projectile in head.
But that's one of the things I really liked about this movie is this nod to the Spider-Man universe. With granted, Ben Urich is not just in Spider-Man, because obviously, but I like that we have Daily Bugle is in this because of.
Oh, that's
Ben
a good
Urich.
point. Yeah.
So regardless, well, I suppose maybe the Daily
actually,
Bugle
I don't
doesn't
think the
exist.
Daily Bugle is in this. I think
Yeah.
no, he mentions the Post.
Yeah, I was about to say.
No,
I guess
I'm sorry,
he
he's
doesn't
working for the
necessarily-
Post in this.
Yeah, I mean, well, granted, I like the idea that there was a guy that eventually works at the Daily Bugle that's in this. They didn't just create somebody. They're like, well, almost at the Bugle, but they're like, well, Urich is a reporter. Let's use Urich in the movie if we're going to have a reporter.
So it was nice of them to put this in here just because we know that, well, A, it's funny, but B, it tells us that Bullseye didn't actually die.
Yeah.
But, once again, the way it's used in the director's cut's way better.
I kind of question his ability to actually flick it if he only has 2 fingers.
Well, that's why they didn't show it, Vince.
Bullseye.
It's kind of unfortunate that they didn't just give us like that, and also the other thing they cut with him and Kingpin both in jail.
Yeah.
Because I kind of like just knowing where they are at the end, you know.
I like
But,
jail.
Okay, naturally Kingpin's going to be in jail now. That sounds silly, but I don't. It's just really comic book that they put them right next to each other. I kind of like that.
Yeah, so they can plot against Daredevil when he gets out.
Yeah, he's like, what are we going to do?
You know, I suppose the Kingpin does have clout. He can make it to where he is close to Bullseye if he really wanted to.
I suppose so. I think I'm remembering that right. It's been a while, but I think we see them both together.
I don't remember that.
Or maybe it's just we see that, but then we also see Kingpin in jail, but not with Bullseye in jail close to him. I forget. I don't remember now. Whatever. We'll talk about that when we actually do the director's cut. and it's I just know how this is going to come off. It's going to be like us going boo theatrical version, yay director's cut.
You know, I really like.
Did you guys really need 3.5 hours to say that?
You see, I really like the theatrical version, not because it's a good movie, but just because it left such an impression on me when I first saw it.
Oh yeah, me too. It's just I still don't think I would watch it just to put it in at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna watch one, you might as well watch the director's cut.
I just don't see the point in like if you're watching something really watered down and you like the other version, if you were to just put this in, it would just be for nostalgia factor.
Yeah.
And I think it says something about you if you're you know what I mean. If you're gonna watch an inferior version just for yeah, well, sure, absolutely.
Because I do own both.
Yeah, but so do I. But I think that I think it's okay for a podcast, you know.
Yeah. So suddenly everybody's like, I want to watch the original one. Let's do a commentary.
Well, I know we've really done our bit on this before. I mean, obviously, you know, I've reviewed both this and the director's cut. Now we're gonna do commentaries on both of them. Like, you know, if people don't know about the director's cut by now, it's not my fault.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
you know, I've been called out on that too. You know, people are like, oh, how is it that you're going to ruin a movie for me? Like, well, you should have read the book that came out 100 years ago. Oh, I'm sorry, but the skeleton in the movie is the same thing that came out prior to this.
Oh, well, I mean, I always tell people when I'm going to do, or I try to tell people when I'm going to do spoilers, except for on these shows where it's kind of evident. Like, if we're going to do a commentary, I don't think we're really going to be all that careful. I don't think you should listen to a commentary unless you've seen the movie. Yeah. I don't even like listening to commentaries on movies I haven't seen a couple times, really, but generally.
Commentaries, it's got to be very specific for me. I'm like, I really have to care what people have to say. Like, I know Kevin Smith did a commentary for Roadhouse, and I'm like, first of all, I'm not sure I really care to watch a commentary on Roadhouse, let alone one by a guy that had nothing to do with the movie.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then you get some people who are just terrible at it.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched commentaries where the person will chime in every, like, 20 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, wow, this is pointless. I just watched this movie yesterday. I don't need to watch the movie again. I don't want to hear this guy tell me something about it. And then contrast that to somebody like Joss Whedon, where you feel like you need to be taking notes while you're watching his. I have listened to every Joss Whedon commentary on Buffy and Angel and Firefly. I've listened to every single one of them because he tells you so much. It's like going to a freaking film class. It's awesome. By the way, Mark Steven Johnson's commentaries on both of these are quite good.
Well, I guess it doesn't matter. Yeah. I've never watched Mark Steven Johnson's commentaries.
Oh, I think you should, at least for the director's cut. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
And he's really down to earth. It's fun to listen to him talk. You can kind of tell how wet behind the ears he was as a director when he made this, because there are some problems he pointed out that I never even noticed about his own film.
Yeah.
One of them, and again, I don't remember. I think this was on the regular theatrical commentary, but he mentions. I always laugh at myself when I talk about other people's commentaries on my own commentary, but he mentions, and I'm bringing this up now because I wanted to mention it earlier and I forgot about it. There's a bit toward the beginning where Kingpin is talking to Elektra's father, and they're in front of this like cityscape, and they did just like a painted background, and it looks terrible. I remember when I was in the theater, it's like. It's got like this film glaze crud on it. It doesn't even look like the city, and it looks like a picture of the city on his wall. I remember in the theater wondering if that was actually supposed to be the city, or if they just had a picture of the city on the wall.
Huh?
Isn't that funny?
I never know. I was so focused on what those guys were saying.
Yeah. Well, anyway. We are to the end of the credits, and that is our commentary podcast on Daredevil. Thanks a lot for listening. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
We'll see you next time.